Hello, I'm Naimish, and welcome to my channel, Ruhani Awaz, where we talk about how to put soul into your song.
Saga Mada Pa Gama Pa Gama Re Ni Re Ni Dha Pada Ni Sa Re Ga Re Sa.
Do you really need to learn classical music? A friend of mine asked this question 15 years ago at a singing gathering. I casually announced that I'm going to start learning Hindustani classical music. Now, I remember this question very vividly because what followed was a very lively discussion and debate on this topic. Now, I think what my friend really meant is that do you really need to learn this so that you can sing this kind of songs? So let's talk about this topic. Do you really need to go through formal training in Hindustani classical music or Carnatic classical music to sing light Bollywood songs? But before I do that, please do subscribe to my channel, hit the bell icon, and please leave your comments in the comment section. And by the way, please do watch this video until the end because we will briefly talk about the great Kishore Kumar, who apparently had no formal training. I mean, no formal classical music training. I'm going to give you my perspective on this topic. Let me set the stage by telling you a story about the Buddha. One day, the Buddha was meditating under a tree. An old Brahmin came to see him. He sat beside him, waited for the Buddha to open his eyes. When the Buddha opened his eyes, the Brahmin asked the Buddha, "O enlightened one, I'm getting old. All my life I have prayed to God. I have done rituals every morning. I have read scriptures. And I feel like I still haven't realized God. I haven't attained self-realization. Buddha, is there God?" The Buddha looked into Brahmin's eyes and said, "Dear, no, there is no God. If you want to attain self-realization, do meditation and do self-inquiry. Use your own senses, use your own knowledge, and find out answers to your question." A few hours later, a merchant came to see the Buddha. Buddha was meditating. The merchant sat by the Buddha, waited till the Buddha opened his eyes. And when Buddha opened the eyes, the merchant asked, "O Buddha, O enlightened one, I have my doubts. You see, all my life I have been an atheist. I never believed in God. In fact, I personally didn't believe in God, but I convinced so many people to not believe in God. But now I am getting old. And now I have doubts. What if there is God? Is there God?" The Buddha said, "Yes, dear, there is God. If you want to attain self-realization, then you need to do meditation and answer your questions by doing your own inquiry. Whether God is there or not, it's for you to find out by your own inquiry." Now, next morning, one of the disciples who had overheard Buddha's conversation with the Brahmin as well as the merchant confronted the Buddha and said, "Why did you give two contradictory answers to the Brahmin and the merchant?" And the Buddha said, "You see, both of them were on a wrong path. And I needed to give two different answers to two different people to put them on the right path. And the right path that I'm talking about is the path of discovery of truth. Now, some of you may ask, what's the relevance of this story to the question about learning classical music? Let me explain. You see, sometimes I come across people who claim that, oh, they have their Visharad, they did some Visharad degree in 10, 15 years ago, or they have some other credentials, such as they come from falana lineage family, as if just because they come from the families, they have all the skills needed to sing. And despite having all this background, scriptures in their head when they struggle with singing. You see, when it comes to music, developing your vocals and vocal muscles so that you can sing well, you can bring life to your singing, it's a lifelong commitment. You have to do daily practice, daily riyaz. Just because you got your Visharad 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 2 years ago, does not matter. And then there are classically trained singers who do their daily riyaz. Their note skills, their rhythm skills, their knowledge of ragas is impeccable. Yet, when they perform light music, they lose the soul of the song. The reason? They get lost in notes sometimes. They get lost in artistic exaggerations. Let me tell a story about a composer. A composer composed a beautiful piece of music. When his orchestra started playing the music, they had their music sheet in front of them. They were carefully playing along according to their music sheet. They were playing correctly, but when composer was hearing the music, he just did not feel that there was soul, there was energy. So the composer yelled loudly and told everybody on stage. He said, "Listen, music is not just about notes. Play music." And all his artists got the message. And they started playing music with lot more energy, lot more engagement. Perhaps they made more mistakes. But there was life, there was soul in that music. And that is what composer wanted to hear. So, knowing classical music does not mean you will be able to put soul into your song. So the story I told you about the classically trained singers, those who have gone through the rigors of classical training, classical music training, they are sort of the personification of the Brahmin in that story that I told you about. Now let's talk about who are the merchants. In my mind, the merchants are the atheists. Atheists in singing world, which are, oh, I don't need to learn classical music to sing well. And the reason? Well, they will drop some names like Kishore Kumar. So let's address that topic. If you don't want to learn classical music, if you don't want to go through the rigors of learning, different rags, what are the main swars, Vadi and Samvadi swars of the rags, time to perform, the chalan of the rag. If you don't want to learn all those details, fine. You don't need to learn those details. But you still need to learn basic sa, re, ga, ma, pa, da, ni, sa, those notes. The 12 notes of an octave. You need to know the pitching of those notes. You need to know how those notes are used creatively in a composition. You need to learn vocal techniques such as vibrato. You need to learn vocal techniques such as glides or meaned. You need to learn falsettos. You need to understand what are the limits of your voice. You need to learn proper breathing techniques. So let's talk about Kishore Kumar then. Kishore Kumar had all this. He had learned all this. Yes, he did not go through the rigorous training of learning classical music, but he was musically a very literate artist. Now, if you don't want to learn all those things about classical music or just music training in general that I talked about, you can still sing. You can still follow what I call the parroting technique. Parroting technique is where you listen to the song hundreds of times, the tune goes into your soul, and then you just copy it. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, fine. You can sing well, and if you hear the song again and again, hundreds of times, you might even be able to use some of the techniques. But if you want to sing well consistently, if you want to sing any song, anytime, and do it well, learning music, I'm not talking about classical music, but learning music and music techniques would go a long way.